My life, I've studied memory systems, and your brain's a lot more powerful than what you might think it is. And to be able to take His Word and put it inside of you and be able to carry it with you, because you can't meditate on it until you get it in your head. Because, you know, there are some people who take Bible verses and stick them on their dashboard and things like that, and that's good, you know, but it's sort of dangerous. And so if there's a way to put it inside your head, that's really a good thing. Just to explain how you need to do that, the reason that we have a hard time remembering things that we want to remember is because we generally remember best the things that we can see. When you see something and notice it, especially if it's unusual, you'll remember it. But when you just read something, often you don't. Many of you discovered that in school. That just reading something and then you go, well, what was that? So the real trick to remembering the Bible is to turn different things in the Bible into pictures that you can visualize and see. Now, for some people, this is really threatening because it forces you to do funny things in your head. It forces you to feel kind of silly, like this is kid stuff or whatever. And so for many of you, you'll just never put this into action and you'll never do it because you'll feel silly doing it. But the question is, do you want to remember things or don't you? And that is how you remember things. Even in simple ways, when you were a kid growing up in school, when they would say, you know, how do you remember the I and E rule? You made it into something, a little jingle, I before you, except after C, or sounded as A as in neighbor and way, and then you remember it. I used to talk to people and go, how many of the Great Lakes of Michigan do you remember? And most people are Michigan, and we all know all the Great Lakes of Michigan, but we don't have a way of actually seeing them and turning it into something that we can remember. So you can take just a simple acronym like the word HOMES, H-O-M-E-S, and if you look at the Great Lakes and you picture them as 5 homes, and now you take HOMES, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. Once you know that, then it's real easy to remember the names of the Great Lakes because you kind of know them. You just need something to jog it and put it into your mind. So what I'm going to do over the next 30, 40 minutes is to show you how to use some of these capabilities that your mind has and take what you want to remember from the Bible and actually remember it. So the first thing is something pretty simple. Is there anyone in here who can name the 12 tribes of Israel in the order of oldest to youngest? There's one guy that can. Good for you, man. Everybody else should be able to, after I show you how I would, as an example of how you remember those sons. Most of them, you've heard their names, but it's like, okay, how do I remember it? So what we're going to do, we're going to use this room and some of the stuff in this room. And since there are 12 of them, 12 sons of Jacob, we need 12 objects in this room. And I want to remember them oldest to youngest, so we're going to go around the room and pick 12 objects, okay? So get these in your mind, just see them. The first object is going to be the sound booth back there where Paul Atkinson's sitting. That's number 1. For number 2, let's go to this Catholic-looking shrine wall, and we use the big cross up at the top. And then for number 3, we'll use the window going into the nursing mother's room. Number 4, we'll make it that speaker, the Yamaha speaker. 5, we'll go the keyboard. 6, we'll say the guitar. 7 will be the dove, or the map of Texas, as some people call it. 8 is the pulpit. 9 will be these plants down here. Number 10 will be the drum kit. Number 11 will be that projection screen. And number 12 will be the communion table right there, okay? So 12 objects looking around the room. 1 sound booth. 2, the Catholic-looking cross. 3, the window. 4, the speaker. 5, the keyboard. 6, the guitar. 7, Texas. 8, the pulpit. 9, the plants down here. 10, the drum kit. 11, the projection screen, and 12, the table. Okay? Now, do most of you have those down pretty good? Think you can look around the room and go, okay, yeah, 1, 2. Okay, whoever is going, I'm lost already. I don't have a special ed credential, sorry. But I'm just kidding. You'll get it as we go through it. Now, all we need to do is make each of these 12 objects remind us of a son of Jacob, and then you've got it, okay? So the oldest son of Jacob's name was Reuben. So what you're going to do is look at Paul back there, and he's actually making Reuben sandwiches. And he's cutting them for you, getting the pastrami in them and everything, and handing out Reuben sandwiches. Now, if you go, I don't even know what a Reuben sandwich looks like, then, pick Reuben Studdard, the guy that, was on the first year of American Idol. If you're like, I don't remember him, do you know someone named Reuben? What does the picture of Reuben say to you? But I'm just going to use a Reuben sandwich, and Paul's giving Reuben sandwiches out from the sound booth. Okay? So then we're going to come over to the cross. The second tribe of Israel, the second son of Jacob's name was Simeon. So when I think of Simeon, I'm thinking, okay, something simmering, it's like cooking. And so I'm going to picture that cross, but it's actually a pan with a long handle on it. So look at it, and there's some veggies and stuff simmering inside there. So look at it. Don't just go, yeah, I know, okay, frying pan. No, look at the pan and actually see it. Force your mind to see it. And again, if you didn't see it already, see the Reuben sandwiches in the booth, okay? So now that's simmering, and that's going to remind you of Simeon. So then the window here, the third child of Jacob's name was Levi. And so let's just picture that window. Instead of having that shade in it, pairs of Levi jeans hanging inside the window as a curtain. So look at that and see Levi's. Really see it. Make sure you see it. The next one of the tribes of Israel, in order the age of their father, was the tribe of Judah. And the word Judah is where we get the word Jew from. So if you remember Jew, you're probably going to remember, Judah. So in the speaker, the round speaker there, just picture it as a giant yarmulke, because that's a Jewish speaker. When I was in Israel, last time I was in Israel, I got a yarmulke with Homer Simpson on it. It was my favorite. But so that's a Jew speaker. Okay, so and I can say it because I just found out I'm 1% Jewish. I sent my spit in, and they tell you what you're composed of, and I'm actually 1% chosen. But so that's a Jew speaker. Okay, the next tribe of Israel is Dan. So the keyboards, I'm going to see, how many of you know who Dan Aykroyd was? I mean, most of you or some of you. He's a guy that was on Saturday Night Live. If you don't know, I'm going to picture Dan Aykroyd. He was in the Blues Brothers with John Belushi. I'm going to picture him dressed in his Blues Brothers outfit, and it's Dan playing the keyboards. Now, if you have no idea who Dan Aykroyd is, you know somebody named Dan for sure. So picture Dan playing keyboards. Don't just say it. Look at it and go, I can see Dan right now, because right now I can see Dan Aykroyd playing those keyboards. I'm going to watch him come up and actually take the cover off the keyboards, and he starts playing. And so that's Dan. Now, the next tribe of Israel is Naphtali. When I think of Naphtali, I think of taking a nap, and it's the guitar. So I'm just going to imagine that, while I'm up here speaking, somebody's just going to come up here, take the guitar, lay it down on the ground, and lay down and take a nap on it. So see, even yourself, I know you've been tired during some of this thing. So picture yourself taking a nap with your head on the guitar, and that's going to remind you of the tribe of Naphtali. Okay? So let's review. Sound booth? And the cross? Simeon. The window? Levi. Judah. Dan. Good. Now, and you'll get credit if you just go nap. If you don't, you'll remember Naphtali after a while. Okay, the dove right here. And the next tribe is the tribe of Gad. Now, it's hard, in thinking of Gad, have you heard the word Gadzooks? It was like on old cartoons and stuff. Somebody would go, Gadzooks. It was like a kind of an expletive in a way that was, it was in those. Well, anyway, for me, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to see somebody's head popping out going, Gadzooks, popping right out of the dove. Now, if that doesn't mean anything to you, come up with something else that will remind you of the word Gad. It could be somebody just starting to say God, and then they realize, I shouldn't do that in church, so they go, glad, or whatever. Or even you can picture glad, a glad bag over it, but just get something that's going to take you to Gad. Next tribe of Israel, and it goes with this pulpit, is Asher. So what I want you to see, the pulpit made of ashes. And then when I come up here and I put my Bible on it, it just falls apart because the ashes just dwindle into nothing. So see the pulpit made of ashes, and that's the tribe of Asher. Okay, can you see that? Okay, the plant down here, the next tribe of Israel, the next son of Jacob, was a guy named Issachar. So what I think of for Issachar is it's a car. And either sometimes they do it with a game show host or something like that, but just trust me that this right here is actually a car that's disguised. It's not a plant. It's actually a car. And you go, it's not a car. I go, it is a car. It is, I tell you, it is a car. Okay? And see that thing as a little car just buzzing off. And you go, wow, it is a car. He's right. Okay? So that's the next one. Now, the next son of Israel is a guy named Zebulon. When I think of Zebulon, I think of zebra. So I'm just going to look at the drum kit. It's all black and white, which works really well. But I'm just going to picture a zebra playing drums. So look at him and see him. Hard to hold the drumsticks in his hoofs. So he's just like using his hoofs. But it's like a zebra sitting up there on the stool playing it. Okay? So that's the 10th. Then for up here, the 11th son was Joseph. When I think of Joseph, I think of Joe. What I'm gonna see up there is Joe Rogan. See, the guy's hand is like up. I'm gonna picture Joe Rogan, who's the announcer for the UFC. When a guy's getting his hand held up and Joe's ready to interview him. Now, if you don't know who Joe Rogan is, or you can't, I could get a fear factor into there too for Joe. But picture somebody that you know named Joe, and have them be a part of that picture right there on the screen. And that's going to remind you of Joseph, the 11th son of Jacob. Okay? And then for the 12th son of Jacob, it was Benjamin. When I think of Benjamin, I think of Benjamin Franklin. So I'm just going to look at this table, and I'm going to see Benjamin Franklin, little fat guy, the little glasses and everything. And he's doing an experiment right on this table to demonstrate something that he wants to demonstrate. It's like it's all set up as science. But make sure you know that it's Ben Franklin. It's not Thomas Edison or somebody else. So you look at it and make sure that it's Ben. You can even have him actually have a kite going up from the table and, with a key on it and electricity going if you want to develop that story. So we go, just don't tell me. Well, first of all, who can tell me what the 12 objects are in the room? You're pretty sure that you can go, yep, 1, 2. Okay, go ahead. Stand up and, you. Stand up and just tell me the 12 objects or locations.
The sound booth, the cross, the window, the speaker, the keys, the guitar, the dog, pulpit, plants, projector screen.
Forgot one. There you go. Good. So it's pretty easy to think of those. Now, for our associations, for our pictures, you just have to take it a step further. And so I'll remind you once again, Reuben sandwiches out of the sound booth. This is simmering. The pan is simmering. There's Levi's in the window. That's Jewish. Dan Aykroyd is playing keyboards. Somebody's taking a nap on the guitar. Gad coming out of here going, egads, or Gadzooks or whatever. This thing is made out of ashes for Asher. It's a car, Issachar. The zebra playing the drums, that is Joe Rogan, as far as I'm concerned, Joseph, and Ben Franklin's down here doing an experiment. So, what if you had to say, name the sons of Jacob, who are the tribes of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel, and can you do them backwards, youngest to oldest? Of course. Because you would go, who's the youngest? Mm-hmm. You guys are so smart. And if I said the fourth one, you go 1, 2, 3, Judah. And so it's as simple as that. Now, if you go over that just a couple times in your head, and you can envision this room, then it's easy for you to remember 12 things, right? Now, you can use this with your grocery list or anything else that you want to memorize. Now, here, as a pastor, one of the things that I do, for instance, for my message for Sunday, is I have in my office, if you come in and turn to the right, there's a TV on the wall. There's then a group of a sofa and love seat and ottoman right there. There's a bookcase here. There's another bookcase over here. There's a file cabinet there. There's a printer right there, a computer on my table, my desk. There's a cabinet in the corner, and there's a Dodger picture on the wall. Now, it's rare that I would have that many points in my message, but my first point, or the first thing I say in my introduction, is always on the TV. And the second one has to do with what's going on in that furniture grouping. And the third one's going to be the first bookcase, and so on. And you can do this to remember anything that you want to remember. And so what you do is you start by going to the most familiar place to you. So maybe it's your house, and you think of your living room and go, there's a sofa, there's a love seat, there's a picture, there's a hutch, there's a dining room table, there's a window, and if you use the same ones every time, you could use these, but you could probably find some that are more familiar to you, then all you need to do is take what you want to remember and plug it into those pictures, and you'll end up having the stuff. And I would defy you, next time you come in here, you're going to remember the tribes of Israel. You won't even be able to forget them if you try, because after you just go over them a couple times, then, and if anything, you might go a week from now, let's see, Reuben, Simeon, Levi for sure, Judah, piano, so you might need to review just a little bit to get them, but you'd be amazed at how much you're capable of remembering. And that just scratches the surface. Using locations or places is the simplest way to remember things. Guys who do memory Olympics and things like that, they often use places, but they have hundreds of places. Like they'll go every building on their way home from work, or there's one guy who was one of the best at the Memory Olympics who actually he was a golf nut, and he used the 18 holes on like 10 different golf courses that he knew, because each hole was different, and each of them became a location that he used as a file. There's an even easier way to do it, and a simplified version of it. I use rhyming words for it, and this is how I would teach people the 10 Commandments, and I've used this for years. But the rhyming words are going to be, number 1 is run, 2 is shoe, 3 is tree, 4 is door, 5 is dive, 6 is sticks, 7 is heaven, 8 is gate, 9 is vine, like you swing on a vine, and 10 is hen, a female chicken. So 1 is run, 2 is shoe, 3 is tree, 4 is door, 5 is dive, 6 is sticks, 7 is heaven, 8 is gate, 9 is vine, and 10 is hen. You can remember those fairly easily, right? Because they rhyme, they're pretty simple. What's 6? Sticks. 4? Door. Yeah, okay, good. So if you learned those little, you could use them all the time for all sorts of things, and that way you wouldn't have to put yourself back into a room in your mind. So the 10 Commandments. The first commandment is, thou shalt have no other gods before me. So the first number, 1, is what? Run. So I picture God in a race with some other little gods, and he's in front. He's crossing the finish line, breaking the tape, because he will not have any other gods before him. He finishes first, no other gods before me. So 1 is run is no gods before me. You get the idea? Now picture it in your mind. Picture what you think God would look like, and he could just look like Jesus, because Jesus is what God looks like. And picture him crossing the finish line first, winning the race with other gods being far behind. Okay? Now, 2 is shoe. The second commandment is, don't have idols. So picture taking off your shoe, and there's an idol there, and just taking your shoe and just smashing the idol, just busting it up into crumbs, just smashing it. And then you just put your shoe back on, and there's no idols, because you smashed it with your shoe. 3 is tree. The third commandment is, don't take the Lord's name in vain. So I want you to picture yourself carving God in the trunk of a tree, and then having God just zap you with lightning because you're using his name in vain. And if you need to remember a vein, imagine that as you're carving it into the tree, you hit a vein and it starts bleeding all over the place. I know it's silly. The sillier it is, the more likely you will remember it. So tree, you're carving God's name in vain, and that's the third commandment. 4 is door. Fourth commandment is keep the Sabbath. So just imagine that on the Sabbath day, you lock the door. You're like, that's it. This is the Sabbath. Nobody's doing nothing because of the Sabbath. That's what the door is there locked for, okay? 4 is door. 5 is dive. The 5th commandment is honor your father and mother. So picture yourself on a high dive, a diving board, and your parents are sitting there right on the edge of the pool watching. And you want them to be proud. And so you're going to show the kind of dive that you did. I don't know if you saw this, like last year they had this show where people that can't dive at all were doing, like Kareem Jabbar and people like that were diving, and just, it was awful. They had that one Louis guy, the real fat comedian, trying to dive, and it was awful. But that's you. And your parents are there, and before you go off the board, you go, I want to dedicate this to my parents because I just want to honor them for everything they've done for me. And then you throw off this great dive. 5 is dive, honor your father and mother. You're diving in order to honor your parents. Okay? 6 is sticks. The 6th commandment is don't commit murder. So you go, think of your favorite murderer. When you think of murder, who do you think of? For me, it's O.J., even though I'm still not convinced he totally did it. But some murderer, and go, instead of sending him to jail, what we're going to do is everybody gets a stick, and we're just wailing on him, man. O.J. is like trying to run through the airport, and we're boom, boom, nailing him with, yeah, you got to be old to get that, but nailing him with sticks, because you kill somebody, you're going to get hit with sticks. So 6 is sticks, O.J., murder. Okay, don't kill. Now, 7 is heaven. So the 7th commandment is don't commit adultery. Now, this isn't true, but this is what I picture, that your heaven opens, and they go, if you've ever committed adultery, you can't come. You can't go to heaven if you've committed adultery. And you go, no, that's not right, that you could be forgiven. I know, this isn't theology, this is remembering the 10 commandments. And so what I would say is, if you commit adultery, you can't go to heaven, okay? Because I want to remember 7 is heaven, and it's don't commit adultery. 8 is gate. The 8th commandment is don't steal. So you put a lock on your gate so that people won't steal stuff from your house. But imagine you just put a lock on your gate. You're like, okay, good, nobody can steal from me. And some guy comes along and just takes your gate off the hinges and steals your gate. They're just running away with your gate. 8 is gate, don't steal. Okay? The 9th commandment is, the 9th number, 9 is vine. The 9th commandment is don't bear false witness. So I think of a vine, like Tarzan or somebody we used to swing on, and I picture a bear swinging on this vine, coming into the courtroom and landing in the witness chair. And it's like this bear is going to bear false witness. You can't believe a bear when he's going to testify in court. So the vine is a bear swinging into the courtroom, bearing false witness. That's the 9th commandment. 10 is hen, a chicken. And the 10th commandment is, don't covet your neighbor's house or your neighbor's wife. And so I think of my next door neighbor's house, and there's a huge chicken that's sitting on their house, like trying to hatch it. And the house is there, and his wife is inside there, and the chicken is covering my neighbor's house. So don't cover your neighbor's house, your neighbor's wife. Don't covet your neighbor's house and wife. Do you get that? So, quick review. 1 is run. First commandment, no other gods before me. Picture it if you didn't get that. 2 is shoe. I'm smashing the idols. You don't worship idols. 2nd commandment. 3 is tree. What was I carving in the tree? God's name. Don't put it in vain. 4 is door. Why was the door closed? Sabbath. You got to keep the Sabbath holy. 5 is dive. Who are you diving to impress? Your parents, mother and father. To honor them. 6 is sticks. Who do we beat up with sticks? Murderers. Don't kill. 7 is heaven. Adultery. As much as you want to argue with that, sorry, that's my picture. and so don't commit adultery. 8 is gate. Got stolen, right? So thou shalt not steal. 9 is vine. Bear swinging into the witness stand, bearing false witness. And 10 is hen. Covering your neighbor's house and your neighbor's wife, or don't covet your neighbor's house, don't covet your neighbor's wife. So those are the 10 commandments. Now, honestly, how many of you could have rattled off the 10 commandments even before we did this? Not many of you. You know, it's funny because we talk about the 10 commandments. One thing that caused me to do this is there were some politicians who were trying to get the 10 commandments back into schools and public buildings and things like that. And so there was this Republican congressman who was being interviewed by a liberal commentator. And, you know, he said, so you want the 10 commandments to be in all the public places and everything? And he goes, yes, absolutely. And the guy goes, so can you tell me the 10 commandments? And he's like, And then Bill Maher just went in for the kill. He goes, can you name one of the 10 commandments? He goes, kill? That was all he could do. And I thought, it's so funny. Like most of us, we go, yeah, the 10 commandments. But do we even know the 10 commandments? And now you guys, with just a little bit of review, I think you have learned the 10 commandments in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that. And that's how simple it is to program your mind. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. And the more you have fun with the Bible and delight in His Word, the more you find different ways of remembering what's in there and how to remember it. So if there's a verse, for instance, that you think, I want to meditate on that verse, take a couple of key words in the verse and make a picture with those words, and then it makes it easy to carry the verse with you all day. And then you can check if you don't remember it. But for us, the 12 tribes of Israel, who's pretty sure you could get them all right now? So we changed the subject. You could, okay, go ahead. Stand up and tell us the 12 tribes of Israel. Who's the oldest?
Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin.
Nice. And now, we didn't talk beforehand, and you didn't study these for weeks, right? Just a simple little thing. And you'll be amazed as you're reading the Bible. All of a sudden, you can go, oh, you know, it's talking about the Levites, the tribe of Levi. Yeah, he was actually the third son of Jacob. It's just there, and you know it. And once you review it a little bit, you really remember it. And again, 10 Commandments are things, it's pretty important. And so for us as people who are Christians, people who follow God, it makes sense for us to at least know it. How long does it take to do that? And you can apply that kind of thing to just about anything that you want to remember. Those are just a couple of tools. When you might say, well, when it gets more complicated, there are some things, how would you do it? Well, another tool that I don't really have time to develop for you today, but there's a way to take consonants and connect them with digits, so consonant sounds. So, for instance, for me, actually, 1 isn't run. That was the easy one for you to remember. There's only 10, but what would happen if you got to 11? You go, that rhymes with 7. So is it heaven 2, second heaven, or whatever? So what I do is every digit, 1 through 9 and 0, has a consonant sound attached to it. And so when I can take a big number and I can translate it into a word or a series of words. And again, words you can picture. Numbers all look alike. So for instance, the digit number 1, I use T or D. Those are the same basic sound. It's called a dental in linguistics, T, D. And so anytime there's a 1, I use that. So for me, my peg word for number 1 is tie. I picture a necktie. So for me, if I was remembering, the tribes of Israel, I would need to picture a Reuben sandwich wearing a tie, because that would be my number 1. Now, other digits, 4 is R, because 4 ends in R. 5 is L, because your 5 fingers spread out makes an L, and so on. So it doesn't take long to learn all those 10 sounds. 0 is S, it's pretty obvious. 2 is N, 3 is M, because that's a 2 or a 3 put on its side, touches the line 2 or 3 times, and so on. So you make those, like 9 is P, flip it around backwards, it's a P, or you can also go upside down with it, and it's a B as well, because those are labial sounds. But once you get those, now you can take any number and turn it into a word for a picture. For instance, when the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea with Moses, that was in 1445 BC. Now, how do you remember 1445 BC? Well, because it sounds a lot like 1447 or 1544 or, whatever. But if you take the digits, 1445, 1, 4, 4, 5, which is TRRL, then I have the picture, I put the word tire roll. So that's the T is for 1, the R in tire is for 4, the R in roll is for 4, and the L at the end is 5. So it can only transfer back to 1445. So for me, I have a picture in my mind of a tire rolling across the Red Sea, the children of Israel coming behind it, tire roll. I remember, that was 1445 BC. So just about anything that you need to remember, there are ways of turning it into a picture and actually remembering it. And it's one of the reasons, by the way, why God chooses to teach using stories. He draws pictures. Jesus always did that when he taught. It's so funny because we typically don't do that. Now, I'm going through stories of the Old Testament this year. Next year I'm going to do stories of the New Testament. Greg Laurie did a whole big series on Bible stories. Sometimes we think Bible stories, that's like, what are you, going liberal? We're the hard facts. And, well, the way God teaches is using stories. Why? Because you can picture it. When Jesus would talk about a vine, and there's a vine right there, you see that vine and you remember. When all of the events that happened in the Old Testament, they aren't necessarily, they're there for our lesson, but it's not so that we can just memorize the story. It's because that story can speak powerfully to us if we can picture it, if we can see it. And some of the stories that Jesus told, they were longer than what's recorded in the Gospels. But a story is designed so that you can use your imagination, so that you can fill in gaps, so that you can visualize it and picture it. That's the way our brain is designed. It's how we learn best. And it's why God tends to teach that way. And I think we tend to teach kids that way, and then when people get older, we think they need to hear 3 points. But That's not the way we learn best. If we can get a picture of what's happening, then we're going to remember and we're going to know that which is taught. And so the biggest task of education, I think, is how can we take information that we want to know and put it into a form that we can visualize, that we will remember. If a guy walks through this room right now and he is nondescript, wearing jeans and a T-shirt, you're not going to really notice him. But if a guy comes walking in and he's wearing swim fins and a Speedo, you're going to remember him. You'll try to get that picture out of your head, and you can't. You're seeing him now because our minds are designed that way. It's amazing how we're designed, that we can discriminate different things. It's how we learn who people are, because we all look different. And our society wants to make everyone look alike, and yet in reality, God has this creativity and sense of humor. He makes us look different. He makes flowers look different, birds look different, and all this kind of stuff. Why? Because He's creative. And we are created in His image, and therefore I believe that we are doing a disservice to Him if we don't enhance our own creativity. Christians sometimes are way too paranoid about creativity. Creativity is how your brain works best. If you want to just be lockstep doing what you think you're supposed to, you want to live your life that way, join the American Nazi Party. That's how they live, but we're people who God has created for beauty and wonder and excitement and humor and everything that's invoked. And that's why, the most effective communication always incorporates that into it, making word pictures and helping us to visualize. And God's Word is just full of it. You might want to sometimes just go read a chapter of the Bible, and I know this sounds stupid, but draw a picture of what comes to mind when you read that chapter. Now you're going, oh no, that's why I haven't drawn a picture since first grade. Yeah, well, maybe that's why you've been going downhill creatively since first grade. But it's amazing how just sketching a little picture it touches places in your mind that you're not used to seeing. But those are things that God created for you. Like when I prepare a Bible study now, and I've just started doing this fairly recently, I was redecorating my study at home, and I found this cool drafting table. It was from the LA Times composition room. It's all beat up, patinaed all over the place, but it just looked cool. And I go, I want that. And I put it in my study. And now I start out with a big piece of paper. They make this paper that has like Post-it note stuff on the top, and I stick it on that thing, and I just start, okay, here's the passage that I'm teaching on. What pictures come to mind? And I'll map out the story. This happened, and then this happened, and this happened. And well, this reminds me of this and this. And it just looks crazy. But it's so much easier for me to envision what's actually going to be communicated. And I don't, when I teach, I don't go bring the picture out and go, they'd think I was nuts. But I do take a picture of it with my phone, because then, last week I forgot one thing that I was going to say, and I knew I forgot it. Like, what was it? And I just pulled up on my iPhone the picture, and I'm like, there it is. It's right, that little picture. But to allow yourself to be pushed out of your comfort zone and to insist on using the creative gifts that God has given you. Maybe it's writing a song from a verse that you want to remember. It doesn't matter if, you go, oh, I'm not a good songwriter at all. And neither are half the people that we sing their songs. But it's like, no, but it's a creative way to approach information as something more than information, as a real encounter with God. So if you want to use your mind more effectively, you need to get the rest of your capacities of your mind in motion and create pictures and use creativity. And it's just sad when people think, if I draw a picture of a verse, that's just a waste of time. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Because one of His greatest expressions was when He painted this whole universe, and most of it we will never see. He was just playing around. And He says, that's the work of my fingertips. That's just me goofing off. God made things that no one will ever see. And so you can make things that that no one will ever see as well. And it's not a waste of time. It's tapping into who you are as a person and as a follower of Jesus, to just stretch yourself outside of the usual. And I hope you'll at least dabble with this and try it. Just try memorizing some things, memorizing a verse or a passage or some truths, and express it in a way other than just going over and over it. Learning things rote is the worst way to memorize things. And yet, in our educational system, that's the way we teach everyone. Just learn it. Just learn it. There's easy ways to remember it. We might as well tap into those, and then it'll give you more energy when you're left over to do other things that are fun and not just be in a drudge all the time in your life. So that's my take on memory. I did a series for my church on Wednesday nights a while back, and I didn't call it this, but they did. They called it Think Like Dave. And it was all this kind of stuff for several weeks about memory systems, and I did a little bit on speed reading as well. So that's all free. Everything we do is free, and it's on our church webpage if you want to go on there and look at it and delve into this a little bit more. Hey, it's great being with you guys. Thanks for listening.